Welcome to the Solo Teacher T podcast. I am so happy that you are here. My name is Brooke. I'm a special education teacher. I teach high school and I just started my 9th year of teaching. If you tuned into my last video, you know that my teacher bestie Jessie and I started a podcast last year, and I am revitalizing it and giving it new life, and I'm going to continue on with the Teacher T podcast. Right now I'm putting Solo Teacher T. It will eventually just be Teacher T because what's the T? What's going on right now? And the only thing that keeps coming in my mind is that TikTok trend where the little CapCut edit that says, you want to know something? You want to know something? So you want to know something? We're going to talk about Teacher T today. We are going to tackle why teachers are quitting. This topic really hits home for me in the last few years. Like, I have really wanted to find another career and find another job. And it kind of breaks my heart because I have made my whole identity is teaching. And it used to be teaching and coaching. I used to coach softball. And it's been my life. It's what I figured out I wanted to do at the age of 19. I used to be a TA or teacher's assistant helping kids in the classroom. And from that job, I was like, I want to be a teacher. I want to make a difference. I want to do this. And then I did my schooling and went through all of it. And now it's really heartbreaking to come to the realization that this job is not what I thought it was going to be. It has changed and evolved a lot in the last 9 years. It has changed and evolved even more in the last 20 years, 50 years, whatever. It's just changing and evolving. And today we're just going to talk about why teachers are quitting. I feel like with any profession, there have been people who are like, I'm just so frustrated, infuriated. I just want to quit. And I know that that comes with, any job that you do. But for some reason, it feels like, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, teachers are quitting at a much higher rate, and it's happening more mid-year. And it's one of those, like, I feel like teachers are just getting fed up and they're like, pardon my language, but just like, fuck it. I'm out of here. Like, I'm out of here. Also, if I cuss on the podcast and you don't really like that, I'm so sorry. But this is kind of like a hot topic. And if you don't like that content and you don't want to watch it, it's fine. But let's just be real. And yeah, sometimes that'll just come out of me. So I looked up some articles about this, and it was really eye-opening and really mind-boggling. So let's just jump into it. So, and you can look these up too. I'll try to give you the titles of the article so you can look them up too. Forbes article written in January 2024, no more teachers, the epic crisis facing education in 2024. The problem is not just current teachers exiting the field, it's that there are fewer people entering the profession to replace them. This next one I thought was really interesting. Current teachers are unlikely to encourage young people to enter a profession that is as challenging as teaching has become. I can relate to that personally. My teacher, Bessie Jessie, she was my student teacher, and I just remember thinking in my mind, do you really want to go into this field? Like, are you sure? I don't know that I ever said that to her, but I just remember when kids would come up to me, or even as she was student teaching, I'm just like, are you sure this is what you want to do? Like, this is a lot. And I'm going to be real honest and real frank. They don't teach you how much it is in school. In school, they don't teach you about the exhaustion and what an actual day in the classroom looks like until you get to student teaching. None of that is really or was really discussed in my classes. So, okay, let me keep going. Educationweek.org. Rising reports of violence are pushing teachers to want to quit. Threats, safety, violence, thoughts, all of those things. I thought that was really interesting. I scanned through that article. I didn't read the whole thing, but you might want to take a look into that. I just saw a TikTok video about this poor teacher, and she was crying. If I can find her, I'll try to tag her on here, but she was crying and she was like, check on your teacher friends. Just these tears. It was real raw emotion. And I think she was a 4th grade teacher. And she said that I guess she had broken up a fight that day, and she's not even able to teach her class. Like, she just was like, I guess I think she had left school early, and there had been a fight, and she was crying. She was in her car, and she's like, I don't even want to go back tomorrow. And that's kind of what I was talking about, where teachers are like, fuck it. Like, I'm not going back. I don't have to go back. I even, just is now jogging my memory, I had a teacher, I'm sorry, excuse me, actually had a TA who was working in my classroom, and this person enjoyed being a TA, didn't like the pay, obviously, used to be a teacher prior, then went to school to work on a job embedded licensure, and got into a position where the violence and the behaviors were so bad that he just, one Friday, he packed up his desk and he told the principal, I've packed all my things up and I'm not coming back on Monday. And there's something so empowering about that. I don't know if I could ever do that. It would have to be really, really bad in order for like me to do that. I've had some days where it's gotten to that point though, where I'm like, this is not worth the pay. It's not worth the headache. But anyways, let's keep going. This article, this will be the last one that I reference. This is from delvinpeck.com. 15 teacher shortage statistics. This was written June 29th, 2024. Okay. 86% of public schools struggle to hire educators. Less than 2 in 10 teachers are satisfied with their jobs. That's saying a lot. 51,000 teachers quit their jobs in the US during 2023. 62% of teachers don't want their children to become teachers, understandably so. 35% of teachers plan to quit in the next 2 years. This is actually down from 44%. You can add me to that list. More than 36,500 teacher vacancies in the US right now, or as of June 29. That number might be a little skewed because I'm sure there was some hiring going on in July right before the school year started. So it'd be interesting to see what that number is now. And then the last one, only 20% of the teachers in the workforce are those of color. So those are just some statistics about teacher shortage. I also saw a short on YouTube the other day. A pretty famous elementary school teacher was talking about there's not a teacher shortage in in the US. However, I think she was saying like people don't want to do this job. There are tons of people like myself who love teaching. I love educating children. I love connecting with them. I loved the position that I had at my old school. It was wonderful, but there are so many jobs that you have to do. You get so little pay, which we're going to jump into some of the high points that I've written out here. And I'm about to be a teacher that is doing a different job. I have really considered exiting the field. The reward of what I thought teaching was going to be when I entered the field is not strong enough to outweigh the negative things that are coming with the job. The negative stuff is significantly outweighing any of the positives, any of the rewarding aspects, any of the influence, any of the difference that you are making. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I think teachers are leaving. Among that reason, there are many others. Number one on my list, tremendous difficulties. Think about all the difficulties that a teacher faces day in and day out. I don't know how elementary teachers do it. And hands down, I know I taught elementary, but I was an inclusion teacher. I also did self-contained classes and intervention, but I wasn't the sole teacher for most of the classes. But as an elementary school teacher, you can't leave your kids alone. You are with the same group for most of the day, depending on what grade you teach or depending on how your school works. And I don't know, just something as basic as like, I can't go to the bathroom when I need to go to the bathroom. I've read tons of articles where teachers are like, I'd stopped drinking and hydrating myself and drinking an adequate amount of water because I didn't have time to go to the restroom. But you have so many tremendous difficulties. And some of those difficulties, I know I put this as point number one, but maybe this is just like the umbrella, the overarching tremendous difficulties that could be like the whole category. Like teaching equals tremendous difficulties. Here are all of those difficulties, okay? Underneath that, I have low pay, high stress. Teachers aren't making enough to live on their own. Groceries are high, rent is high. Forget it if you have a car payment. Like their day-to-day job, they're not making enough money to live. Now, I know that teachers are only getting paid for 10 months out of the year, okay? So are we getting paid an adequate amount of money to even live for those 10 months? I stretch my paycheck out for 12 months. And I've had to live in a lifestyle that's very frugal. I don't mind that, but it's the job that you have to do with the tremendous difficulties and the many hats that you have to wear and the many things that you have to do day in and day out. The pay that you're receiving is not compensating for all of the things that we're doing. Would it compensate for me just showing up and hanging out with the kids all day? Yeah, maybe. It's not compensating for teachers planning on the weekends, grading during their breaks, working duties after school, going and doing bus duty and car duty, all of these other things that encompass it. Just the pay is one of those really big things where teachers are like, I can go and do a work from home job, a work in an office, go and do something else, and it's going to pay me more, and I'm going to have less stress. Now, will it be as fulfilling? Probably not. However, we already talked about the fulfilling, rewarding part of teaching not outweighing some of these things. So this is the problem. I don't know what teachers should be paid. And this could be a whole other topic and episode in and of itself, is just what should teachers actually be paid. I used to joke with my old school and say, so a couple years ago, I think this happened around maybe like right before the pandemic. They used to make us clock in the mornings. And I don't know if they were trying to keep track of when teachers arrived. I can't remember the exact reasoning as to why we were having to clock in. But I remember thinking they want me to clock in to maybe know when I show up, but they don't want me to clock out. And they don't want me to clock in on the weekends when I'm coming up to school or when I'm sitting at home when I'm supposed to be spending time with my family or friends or living life outside of my job, but I'm actually working. Like, if I so badly wanted to go up to somebody at central office and just say, you want me to clock in, but you don't want me to clock out. You don't know when I'm leaving at the end of the day. Are you going to pay me for the 3 extra hours I stayed after school to work? Or the 4 hours I spent on Saturday lesson planning and grading and writing progress reports and writing IEPs? I'm just saying, you want to know something? You want to know something? An interesting fact that I also found out about pay, it kind of ties into pay, but not really. But I wrote that teacher programs are closing because of low enrollment. So teachers aren't even, I can't remember what university, it was a pretty like high-end university, closed their teacher program because people aren't enrolling in it. They don't want to do this job. They don't want to get paid what they're going to get paid, have a ton of student loan debt, do an extremely difficult and hard job, and not get compensated for it. Just saying. My next point is, oh my gosh, I can relate to this so well. Overworked and exhaustion go so hand in hand together. The overworked is whether you are an elementary school, middle school, high school teacher, no matter what age, what grade, what subject. Although I can jokingly say maybe not PE teachers. Although you do have some planning and things like that, especially at the elementary level. No shade to PE teachers. PE teachers are wonderful, but you're overworked and you're exhausted. So like the first few years of teaching, I was exhausted. I couldn't do anything during the school year. I think it was like the third or fourth year of teaching, I had to like get a hobby and force myself to have a better work-life balance and have other things going on in my life outside of work. Like I made work everything. I wanted to do so well that it just became my life. I was so exhausted. I couldn't even enjoy things on the weekend. Like Saturday was like a no plans. I've got to sleep in. I've got to rest. I've got to fuel my body and hydrate. I don't even think I was really like exercising a lot at that time. And I later was like, this is not living. I'm not living my life. I'm just living for work. And I was so exhausted. Like Fridays, even to this day, like I'll come home on a Friday and I am wiped out. I think a lot of people feel that way in their profession too. So I'm not saying this is just specific to teachers, but I'm saying that the constant engagement and have the socialization and the teaching and every aspect of it is I've got to be on from the minute I walk into the door and I say good morning to that first teacher that I pass in the hallway to this minute I step out of that door and sit in my car and don't have to talk to anybody. I have to be on Monday through Friday. And then in addition to that, when I have like IEP meetings, I obviously want to be on it and I want to give all of my energy and my everything in my meetings so my parents and the students can know like, hey, I really care about this and I want you to, I want to work together and you just want to put your best foot forward. And it's so fucking exhausting. It's so exhausting. Like I feel so bad because I have to really be mindful and put my energy or try to reserve energy in different ways so I can have it when I come home from my family. And I don't have kids of my own. I have a stepson. And I don't know what people do. Like my mentor teacher right now, she's got 3 little boys. Her and her husband have 3 little boys. And I'm just like, what do you do after school? What does y'all's day to day look like? How do you get rest? So it's just the overworked and the exhaustion goes hand in hand. In addition to overworked, like you're exhausted on the weekends, but then you have to get up. I used to have to get up and lesson plan. And then if I got up early enough, I could lesson plan and then rest like for the rest of the day. But the overworked is just crazy. The different jobs that we have to do within the one job. Number 4, unrelenting stress. The stress and the toll that teaching has taken and put on my body is kind of incredible. I personally have developed different health issues from teaching and from the stress of being a teacher. I developed insomnia my 3rd year of teaching. I had never experienced that before, which was really hard. And I mean, it's October 2024, and last weekend I had my first bout of insomnia since the school year began. I honestly thought I was kind of over it. I had to get prescription, like medication to help me sleep. It's, on an as needed basis, so it's nothing like habit forming. So I really like that, but I've never had that before. I was not diagnosed, but know that I have anxiety. I feel like in the past I've had a bit of depression just because of I don't want to say my lack of motivation because I don't want to diminish depression in any way because there are some people who have very severe depression. Also don't want to affirm that I have all of these negative things. However, I do feel like because everything was going into work and I didn't have any life outside of work, I would fall into little bouts of depression here and there, and the seasonal depression hit really, really hard. The constant stress of, am I doing enough? I'm working myself to death, but also, am I doing enough? What more can I do? The endless working to-do list, it's a working list. It never goes away. You are never, as a teacher, you are never done until May when the school year ends. And I would even argue as a special education teacher, even then you're still not done because there have been some cases where teachers have to come in for meetings in the summer. You've got your summer IEP team. And there are things that sometimes can loom over the summer if they didn't get tied up and completed the correct way in May. And just as a sped teacher, like if, we ended a year and we needed to have an IEP meeting and we had to have, an addendum at the end of the year and then have an addendum at the beginning of the year. It's just it's constantly going, it's constantly on a loop. The stress of, am I, as a special ed teacher, making sure that I am dotting my T's, crossing my I's, following the law binding document that I've written or either inherited, and making sure that nothing goes wrong with that and the services the students are receiving. That, for the first few years, caused a lot of stress for me. I think other teachers teach other grades just have other day in and day out stressors, and it's anything. It could be anything from like the damn copier is not working and I can't even get my copies for today's lesson, or I forgot to take attendance. Like, we have so many jobs that we forget to do, like the smallest thing, which is account for all of the kids, because we've got to get our day going. Classroom management and behavior management, which is another one that I have on here. That's actually number 5, is behavior management over teaching. Like, that is a crazy stressor that teachers deal with. Getting your grades in, dealing with angry parents who are unhappy with you or unhappy with their child's grade or unhappy with their progress or think you're an inadequate teacher. Like, there are so many different things. Going to work in the morning and receiving that angry parent email, that's a really tough stress. And then you've got to go to work the next day and the next day and the next day wondering, all right, when is the next one going to come? You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many different things. I'm sure I'm leaving things out too. So if you think of any of the other stressors, comment down below, please. Number 5, I have behavior management over teaching. So in one article, a teacher, I can't remember which one it was. It definitely wasn't the Delvin Peck one. It was one that I clicked on before that one, and I cannot remember the name of it. But if you want to Google, behavior and teaching or whatever, you can, and try to find an article. But this teacher was saying that she could tell there was an increase in behaviors pre-pandemic. Like, right before the pandemic started, behaviors were escalating and getting worse with children. And then when the pandemic hit, we all dealt with that. We all dealt with our stressors that came with the pandemic. And then post-pandemic, behavior was off the charts, awful, just crazy. And teachers are having to deal with behaviors instead of teach their lessons and teach their kids and teach their content. And that is really hard. That falls under the unrelenting stress umbrella as well. As a special education teacher, behaviors are obviously things that I could deal with an increase in behaviors in my class, just kind of with the nature of my job and children handling and living with their disabilities. Now, I personally think forming relationships with students is like one of the number one. That's my top behavior management tool. Doesn't always work because, kids are kids, and especially if they have a disability and they have something that they're really struggling with and you have to really work with them on that, then, it is what it is. But forming those relationships and that trust with students is like number one in my book. But sometimes if you are a teacher who may not be as strong with behavior management in your classroom, you may struggle more with that, and that could be an additional stress that you deal with. Even if you are a strong teacher when dealing with behavior management, you could still have a class or two throughout the day or throughout the week that just throws you for a loop. No matter what you do or implement and put in place, they're just going crazy. And there are just some classes and some scenarios where that's the case, and teachers are having to deal with that instead of doing the job that they should be doing, and that's hard. Next on my list, in many districts, education has become a toxic workplace, which that is tough. Sometimes I teach high school, and sometimes I'm like, man, sometimes I feel like I'm in high school, but I don't know how it is I feel like I have been really blessed. Every school that I've worked in has been very wonderful, and I haven't dealt with a lot of toxicity within the workplace and with my coworkers. But that's not one thing that I've ever experienced. If you have experienced that and you'd like to share, please share below. I can't really imagine what that would be like going to work every single day, dealing with all the things that we have to deal with as teachers, in addition to having a toxic workplace where people are engaging in toxic behaviors and doing things that are making the job 10 times harder. So, number 7, staff shortages. In the special education world, I have dealt with staff shortages, I think, every single year that I've taught. There's always, we're in the hiring process of another teacher, or we're in the hiring process of hiring another TA. Like, we are short X amount of TAs, we're short X amount of teachers. It's just every single year we've had, at the school that I'm at, we've had shortages, and it makes the job so much harder. And it's hard to explain to parents that we're doing the best that we can with what we have. And oftentimes, if a parent is really angry and they don't feel like their kid's getting what they need, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to do more. And you're like, I'm trying. It's hard to fill in for 3 different people as one person. A lot of times I feel like sometimes teachers get blamed for that because, well, you should be doing more, you should be working more, and we're not getting compensated for working more, even though we're having to make up for the staff shortages. Another part of one of the articles that I read said that veteran teachers are really, it's weighing on them more, that new teachers are leaving the profession or not, coming into the profession even at all, because they have to take on those roles. They have to take on more roles because they're, sticking it out. They're a veteran teacher. They don't want to quit. They love their job, or they're just riding it out until retirement, but they're having to inherit more things because people aren't coming into the field or people are leaving. So the staff shortages has been a big thing. Like, we're even dealing with it now at my new school, and like, our school's trying to hire people, but people aren't. At my last school, we would have so many TA openings, and people aren't applying for the job, which I don't blame you. You don't get paid anything as a TA or an EA, educational assistant. You don't get paid hardly anything at all. You can't even, if you feel like you can't live on a teacher salary, forget being a TA. There's no way. You cannot live on that income alone. And many are having to work multiple jobs to just make ends meet. I had to do that when I was a TA, and going through school was tough. So that's another, I feel like the staff shortages can fall under like unrelenting stress, and like, it's just one of those things where you're like, fuck, we got to deal with that. Like, in addition to, if you have staff shortages and then you have somebody call out, you're like, I'm already covering for this, and now I got to cover for this. And people have to call out when they're sick. Like, everybody understands it, but it's just sometimes it's just piled on and on and on and on and on. Okay. The last thing that I wrote is work-life balance. And I've talked about this a little bit, and I just feel like teachers aren't able to really have a proper work-life balance just because of the nature of the job. It takes so much energy out of you. It's so exhausting day in and day out. And like I said earlier, like, I had to really force myself to have a better work-life balance and leave work at work. And teaching is one of those jobs where I feel like you never stop thinking about it. And if you can, that's great, and continue to practice that and do it. If I worked at an office, I would clock out and not worry about it until I clocked in, or at least that's what I think. But with teaching, you're constantly thinking about your students. You're constantly thinking about, well, can I try this strategy? Should I be teaching this content? Maybe we should be starting this instead of this. Am I behind in my curriculum? Am I ahead of my curriculum? Like, where am I at? Like, there's constant reassesses. We're constantly reassessing what we're doing, what we can do differently. How can I get little Johnny to pay attention better? How can I get little Susie to open up more and produce better work in class? Or how can I get little Bob over there, breakfast in the morning and make sure he's well fed and taken care of and loved? Like, there's just so many. I don't know. I got off on a tangent. I don't even really. Work-life balance. Okay. Yeah. So, what do you do for your work-life balance? My non-negotiables are exercising either in the morning or the afternoon unless I'm sick, and meditating. And I wish I had more time to meditate, or I need to carve out more time to do it, because it's like medicine for me. It helps my anxiety so much. It has been so life-changing. I still struggle sometimes, but it's been incredible. So those are my non-negotiables. And then when work is done, in order to improve my work-life balance, I'm done. I'm not working off the clock anymore. I am not going to work in a position that's going to force me to work off the clock, which is what I had the last 5 years, and really trying to prioritize being the best version of myself for my family, not just for my job. And the family aspect needs to be put in front of my job. So yeah, I feel like that was a lot of heavy topics as to why teachers are quitting and leaving their jobs. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I love teaching. I love connecting with my students. I love making a difference. But I am, as of right now, it could change. I'm looking for a way to exit the field of teaching. And maybe that's what this podcast and channel will kind of morph into. Down below, I want you to comment, have you thought about quitting? And or do you have plans to quit? And why? What are your reasons? As teachers, they always say, remember your why. What's your why for quitting? Why do you want to leave this job that you, for me, have poured everything into, and it's been my whole life? Why are you wanting to quit, if you are wanting to quit? And if you're not, also comment, because I want to know, if you're not wanting to quit and you don't want to leave your job, I want to know why, and maybe in hopes to find something similar to what you have. So that was our episode today. I'm really proud of myself because I didn't think I was going to film another episode, but I'm driven, and we're here, and we are here to tackle and talk about some of those tough subjects, or also maybe some of the more happier subjects with teaching. And I don't want you guys to think it's all going to be venting and negatively talking about this position, because even though I may want to exit the field, I still have loved the experience that I've gotten over the years. But some other topics to come. If you have any suggestions for what you want to listen to, or what you may want to talk about or comment on, please let me know, like video wise. This one was really hitting heavy for me, and I had been thinking about it a lot, so I really wanted to talk about it. I'm sure I left off something. I'm sure I left off a bullet point as to why teachers are quitting. If I did, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to read that and comment about it. The next video, I don't know what, maybe work-life balance as a teacher. How do you survive the school year as a teacher? I'm just really ready for Thanksgiving break. Thank you so much for watching. If you have stayed till the end of this video, I so appreciate you. I'm so happy you're here. I guess with this podcast, I just want to share information that relates to you and your position. You are not alone in your job, and you're not alone in your struggles. You're not alone in your happiness that you experience with your job. And we're all trying to do this together. We're all trying to survive together. We're all trying to make it to the next break together. I am so happy that you're here listening. And I hope you, wherever you're at in the school year, if you're listening to this months later, wherever you're at in the school year, I hope you can find happiness where you're at right now. And just know that a break is coming soon. I know I always say that, but that's always like in the front of my mind. Maybe that's like a sped thing, like first this, then break. First teach, then summer. So a break is coming. A break is always coming, even if it's day in and day out, just dragging on and you are struggling. Just know that whether it's the weekend, a day off, a week off, a holiday coming, a break is coming for you soon. If you are unhappy, you can always change your situation. If you are happy, I'm happy for you. And I hope you can find happiness and peace and joy in whatever you're doing now, even if it's not where you want to be, or even if it is where you want to be. And I hope so much to see you in the next video. Please, please, please like and subscribe if this content is hitting home, and have a wonderful day doing whatever you're doing. And I'll see you in the next video.